So paraphrasing seems like a really simple thing to do, but often turns out to be much more difficult. Um, so you'll be practicing it throughout the semester. In this video, I've listed 3 paraphrasing tips here. 1, introduce your source. 2, paraphrase your source properly. And 3, comment on your source. We're going to look at 1 and 2 in this video and leave 3 for another time. So let's look at a source here at the Charlotte Observer site, and we'll come back to this article again. But for today we're just going to look at it for the purposes of paraphrasing. So the title of the article is "Food Stamps Will Soon Require 20 Hours of Work or Classes in North Carolina," about some legislation that was recently passed. What we're interested in just for the moment is the author, who's down here, Colin Campbell. All right, that's our author. So we'll talk a lot more about when to use sources and why you're using them. So I don't want to go so far beyond that in this video. I just want to look at the paraphrasing itself. So all those other kind of matters we'll cover elsewhere. But I've read this whole article, and let's say I want to use some points in this article in my own paper. Let's say I'm being asked to write an argument that either agrees or opposes with this particular topic, a fairly common college activity, writing activity, agreeing or opposing some particular stance. Not a really exciting one, but you know, it's something you do quite frequently. So most of the information in the argument will come from my own ideas, but those own ideas will be bolstered by sources. So one of the things I want to use to bolster or support my my opinions is this paragraph right here. Is this the one? I believe this is the one I used in my face-to-face class today to be consistent. All right. So I have this bit of information, and what I often do, and this works for me, but you have to find whatever techniques work for you, I want to be very careful not to accidentally plagiarize by including material that I haven't paraphrased properly. However, I don't want to retype everything, so what I'll often do is collect all the bits and pieces and the citation information for those little bits and bobs, and then later when I sit down to write, I have everything in one document and I just put it in my own words, rearrange it, do whatever I need to do. So this is one of those little bits and bobs. I'm going to do Control-C to copy that and try to do all this one-handed. So I'm going to put it here, Control-V, in my Word document, and hopes, yes, it does work. Get rid of this line here. Doing screen capture with one hand is sort of difficult, but the little bit I want to use is the change affects 115,000 North Carolinians who will have to document work, volunteer, or education activities or lose their food stamp benefits. Recipients can still get up to 3 months of benefits without meeting the requirement. I will change that to a different color. That way, as I finish paraphrasing or using this information, I don't change it back to black until I've absolutely put it in my own words. That way I don't accidentally leave things in my paper that I haven't paraphrased properly. So that's just my way of doing it. So I want to use this information, but first I need to introduce my source. This means I'm going to say who the author is, or what web source I got it from, or what book, what magazine. I want to provide some information that lets my reader know that I'm getting ready to introduce material that's not my own. It's material I've borrowed from a source. So let me see if I can do this with one hand here. So Colin Campbell, and remember Colin Campbell, he is the author of this source. And who is he? All right, and I'm putting this in my own words so I feel safe making it black. Well, we don't really know anything about him in this particular article. This is just a newspaper article. On a journal article, I might see who this person is. Am I using him as an expert? Am I using him as somebody who I'm going to argue against? who is he? What's his job? Where does he work? Where does he teach somewhere? Just some information to let my reader know who this person is. And I might do that with the um, first use of him. If I use Campbell's article in several places throughout the paper, I wouldn't want to do this every time. But when I use a new source, I often do state who that person is and why I'm using it. A journalist for the Charlotte Observer, or I could put in the title of the article, Colin Campbell, author of whatever the title of the article is. I could do this a lot of different ways so it's not always the same. And let me format Charlotte Observer correctly here. That should be in italics because it's the title of the newspaper. And then I could put in states that. Okay, so this is number one, introduce your source. That's what I'm doing. You know that at this point that the words that are coming next are not mine. I've written them in my own words, but the ideas came from someone else. Whether I'm quoting it or not, I need to introduce that material, but we're not going to be quoting much in this class, mostly paraphrase. To me, the best way to paraphrase something is to look at what I have to say, then cover that up, turn it over, and just say it out loud as if I were telling somebody else this bit of information. That kind of takes away the inclination to try to put everything in the same order as it is here. I want it totally in a different style. I want it in my style, but the same ideas. So Colin Campbell, a journalist for the Charlotte Observer, states that, and I'm going to put my mic down while I type this up real fast. So now you see why I cut and paste things. So I'm a terrible typer. But here is what I've used. States that 115,000 people in North Carolina will have to prove that they are volunteering, working, or going to school in order to keep receiving food stamps. That's the same information as here, 115,000 North Carolinians documenting their work, volunteer education activities, losing their food stamp benefits. I've put it as differently as I could in the way that fits what I've already written. This is a skill we'll come back to again and again, but I think this is a good place for you to start. And later on we'll talk about number 3.